Started.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the February 13th, 2024 meeting of the Portsmouth Fire Commission. And we'd like to first have a pledge of allegiance. Would you please join us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The chair would like to have a motion on the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
So moved.
Seconded.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Next item on the agenda would be public hearing. That would be 2413, public hearing for the fiscal year 2025 proposed budget for the Portsmouth Fire Commission. At this time, Mr. McClellan, Captain Chief McClellan will give it. I just gave you all your raises.
That's fine. Well, I'm going to turn the podium projector on. It'll project behind you. Bear with me for a second.
You sit down a second.
And you have it here in front of you. Okay, and as a reminder, this is being videotaped and will be displayed on the city's website. So good evening, and I'm going to jump right into the commission public hearing on the budget and present it. So a quick review of our essential services here at the Portsmouth Fire Department. We are not just a traditional fire department that does fire suppression. We also do ALS, emergency response and transport, hazardous materials mitigation. We have a marine waterfront component, in addition to our fire prevention, inspection, community risk reduction, emergency management, community services that we perform. The goals of the department for this upcoming year are to maintain and strengthen a reliable delivery of our essential services and critical emergency and non-emergency services. Promote the safety of the community and the employees through comprehensive education and training, and to provide effective, efficient, customer-centered services. We want to minimize the risk of life and property loss through proactive planning, education, and enforcement of applicable codes and standards. Position summary for you here. Quick review. If you look back over the last 2 fiscal years, you'll see that it has remained flat, and that our part-time administrative clerk was eliminated in fiscal year 23. And the only part-time position that we have is the fire department mechanic. I wanted to review some of the efficiencies here of the fire department. And some of these administrative duties that are assigned to the line officers, which are our department captains and lieutenants. Typically, a lot of these duties are in other fire departments are given to a full-time employee, but here we've delegated these tasks to our shift personnel as well. So in addition to managing their respective shifts and responding to emergencies and conducting trainings, these are some of the activities that they're doing and they're actively engaged with. Again, talking about some of our efficiencies here within the Portsmouth Fire Department, our administrative manager, budget coordinator, she's providing an awful lot of service here for us for one person. In addition to supporting the 3 chief officers and the board of fire commissioners and 4 captains, you can see her daily responsibilities that she's responsible for. And then another efficiency that we use is at the moment we use an in-house mechanic. We use an off-duty firefighter for routine vehicle maintenance, and he's paid at a different rate, which is less than that of a shop rate if we sent it out to one of our vendors as a mechanic. A lot of what he's doing here is preventive maintenance and smaller type stuff. Most of the larger stuff is in fact shipped out. But I will tell you that The person who currently holds this position is retiring in the next fiscal year, and as a result of that, we've begun the discussions, studying with Public Works as to whether or not this position can be perhaps shared or absorbed into the fleet management over at the Public Works Department. And we've had some preliminary meetings on it, trying to explore where we go from there. Our custodial services are performed here by duty personnel between all three firehouses, and you see the amount of square footage and the office space that is taken care of by our staff. The organization of the fire department consists of the board of commissioners, the chief of department. Then there's an assistant chief of operations and training, to which the 4 shifts report to, along with the part-time mechanic. On the other side of the organizational tree, you'll see that there's a deputy chief in charge of prevention and community risk reduction, and our 2 fire inspectors report to him. And then you see that our administrative manager and budget coordinator is there as well, under me. Some statistics of note. You can see our service trends continue to move upward. One of the interesting statistical anomalies that came out of this report, if you'll notice, the top line shows the gold indicates the number of runs that require both a fire truck and an ambulance at the same time. And you'll notice that actually went down by 5, while the lines below, with respect to the number of fire calls and the number of ambulance transports, actually went up. So we continue to think that this will trend upward and continue on this current path. Our ambulance collections by fiscal year have increased from fiscal year 14 to fiscal year 23 by some 47%. We now bring in roughly $1.2 million in ambulance collection. In addition to that, we also bring in some inspection fees and continue to generate revenue to the city's general fund. So before I get into the FY25 requests, what we're looking to do is return service levels. Recall, in the last fiscal year, we operated with 3 ambulances, and we were staffed at 15 personnel per shift. And due to the increase in operating costs that were passed on when the collective bargaining agreements were ratified back at the end of the summer, in order to help fund these, we had to take an ambulance off the road and reduce service in order to make up for this shortfall. We're hoping to cover our increases in these operating costs that we have that are fixed, and then our contractual costs as well. You'll see some increases in the leave coverage accounts, which recognizes our new contract rates and trends as well for leave. And as a reminder or a statement that we're not proposing any new positions or programs within the Portsmouth Fire Department fiscal year 25. What is not requested, but that the commission needs to be aware of, and perhaps the public should take note of, is that we believe that the fire department is a little bit shortchanged here, and that we need to be thinking about adding positions here. Positions both to handle training. We need to be looking at IT management and radio interface and planning. That mechanic position that I discussed earlier, whether it's a DPW position or a fire department position or shared position, should probably have to go to full-time with the amount of vehicles that we have on the road. And we will have to at some point address adding staff on each shift, adding firefighters. And this doesn't take into account any of the dispatch issues that we experienced over the last year. And as I speak to you now, we still are augmenting the police department civilian dispatchers with some of our personnel up there as needed. So I bring these issues up because they need to be looked at, and we should be thinking about them in the future. So I'm going to dive right into the summary of expenditures. For those in the room, there's copies available if you'd like them. But essentially, what we're looking to do is, as I mentioned earlier, to fund these programs, to get our staffing back up, and to fund the contracts at the current, at the rate that they're been increased to. What we're looking for is a proposal that brings in at an 11% increase, or just over $1,248,852 as a total increase. You will see that the large drivers on this are the salaries and the overtime, right? So as a result of not having hired up enough people, our overtime line item needs to be increased. And structurally, one of the things that we're looking at here is applying increases to the overtime accounts in our budgets as we move forward, to be able to account for the increase in the hourly rate for our employees as they matriculate up through the step system, and as their overtime rate increases. Part of the reason that the ambulance had to be removed from service this year was a math problem. I budgeted for a certain number of hours of overtime, like we had in previous years that was similar. The overtime usage hasn't gone up, but what the problem is that with the new contractual rates, our overtime hourly rate increased by 25% or more, depending on the employee. So when you have a certain amount budgeted and you're burning that rate up at a 25% or higher rate, we're going to expend those funds quicker, and that's where we're at. And that's part of the reason that we've moved in the direction that we moved in to remove the ambulance from service in order to make up that shortfall. The city council funded a supplemental appropriation that funded the contracts, but city policy has always been that these appropriations only apply to the salary line items and not to the overtime line items, and that's left to the department head as a management tool to try and determine what to do. Some other items of note here that you will see within the operating budget is the increase to the retirement. You'll see that retirement has increased our rates, and the health insurance has gone up, but it is brought down with the use of the stabilization fund from the city. Again, our budget request comes in at a $12,492,159 number, which is 11.11% increase over fiscal year 24. And again, I've talked about these, but to dive in one more time and drive the point home, the increase in shift coverage accounts staff all three ambulances full time. That number there represents what we believe it will cost to increase these overtime accounts to get staffing back up to where we would like it to be. We have cost of living adjustments in the range of 2 to 2.69% for all of our employees. Our retirement line item has increased some $182,000. Our increase in salary stipends alone represents $138,000 increase, and our workers' compensation insurance increased 33% or $137,000. The health insurance line item, you'll see, is a 3% increase, but there's also an increase in a subsequent line item for our reimbursement stipend to pay for those firefighters that don't take the health insurance and receive a payment in lieu of that. And what this budget does do is return our level of service, stations, and resources back to where it was a year ago, where we had 15 people on duty all the time. You may recall the 5-year strategic plan that we've been working on since fiscal year 2020. This budget attempts to fund that plan. We got there last year, and we've taken a step back, but the plan has called for a staffed fire truck and a staffed ambulance in each of the 3 geographical response zones for the city at all times. So in order to fund that salary benefit shift coverage line items to ensure that we have those folks on duty, that's what this budget number and this subsequent increase represents. So I'd be happy to take any questions from the commission at this time, or from members of the public. If there are members of the public who wish to speak, I'm going to ask you to ask your question, and then I'm going to restate it here into the microphone so that it's picked up for the video.
Chief, can you go back to what the cost would be to staff that third ambulance again? I wasn't sure on the, number.
So the cost to staff the third ambulance is represented here at $576,331.
And that is of the 1.2 million?
Correct. That represents the largest portion of that increase.
Yeah. Thank you.
Certainly.
Chief, the other costs that you list there, the cost of living, the firefighter retirement, increase in salaries, workers' comp and health insurance are not our choice, that we have no control of. Is that
Yeah, that's correct.
considered?
The health insurance and the workers' compensation are external drivers on the budget that we can't control here internally.
And the retirement is controlled by?
Is also controlled by the state retirement board. Our numbers are creeping up here because on the retirement contribution, because our payroll numbers are going up as a result, again, of the contracts.
So these are almost no choice numbers.
Correct.
We need to pay those.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay,
Thank you, Chief.
thank you.
You know, I apologize, I skipped a item 4, which is public comment session. And I'll open it up right now if there's anyone to speak. I apologize for the inconvenience. Seeing no one, I will close the public comment session. Would you like a vote to send this forward?
We can do that under new business if you so choose, Mr. Chair.
That's fine. Thank you. We'll do that. Public hearings, we've done that. Presentation of written communications.
You will see in your packet, you have 2 items. Item 24014 is a thank you note from the Rye Fire Department for support and assistance with the funeral of Lieutenant Gallant back in the month of December. And a thank you letter from the City of Dover Fire Department for station coverage provided to them last month as well.
Make a motion that we accept these letters and place them on file.
So moved.
Into a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Next item on the agenda would be the fire chief's reports, 24016.
I call your attention to item 24016, the activity report for the fire department for the month of January. You'll notice that we went on some 431 calls in total in the month, 135 fire and related services, and 296 ambulance calls. That represents a slight decrease in the amount of ambulance calls from the previous month by the number of 3. There's a few calls of interest here. January 10th, truck 2 and chief 2 went mutually to Northampton on Winnicott Road for about an hour. And later on that day, Engine 1, Ambulance 1, Rescue 7 went to Prospect Street for a vehicle into the building. We actually had to call out the building and electrical inspectors as well. There were no injuries as a result of this accident. And on January 13th, that was the day of the big storm here along the coast. Truck 2 and Chief 1 went to a building fire on Ocean Boulevard in Rye. But as a result of the flooding, we never made it to the fire itself because we couldn't pass through the floodwaters, and instead wound up covering other emergencies within the town of Rye during that period, while the Rye firefighters were tied up fighting the fire. Then a little later on that afternoon, Engine 3, Hazmat 1, and myself went to Epping for a multi-alarm fire and a hazmat spill at the fuel facility. Companies operated there for in excess of 5 hours on that particular night. And one of the things of note that you will see in this report is that the typical report that I present to you in item 2417 had to be split up across 2 different programs as we're transitioning to the new computer-aided dispatch program. As a result of that, some of the data didn't report out accurately, and we couldn't I couldn't give you a number as to why. But what I can tell you is that one of these the item on the second page is actually 10 incidents higher than the number reflected on the first page. So we know we went on these incidents, but we couldn't tell you what district they were in because of a computer glitch. But one of the other interesting things that the new CAD system was able to identify for us is that of those incidents that we responded to in the month of January, 431 times, 125 times in the month of January, we went on a call for service, and a second call for service came in while or before that first call was rendered under control. So just kind of interesting. We can track that sort of thing now, and we don't have to do it by hand. But I thought I would make sure that I report that out monthly because I found it somewhat interesting.
Where are we seeing that? Is that on
You
here?
won't see that because I can't print it yet. However, I can tell you.
Maybe you put it in here.
What was the percentage number?
So it's 125 out of 431 calls. So about 25% of the time.
25%.
Are simultaneously,
Correct.
Concur.
so you're already out.
We're already out. And there's a
Another
second.
emergency comes in that needs to be managed.
Mhm.
So that would tax the resources even further.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes that might be a still alarm where only one truck's out handling a call. And then there's a second, call that comes in that perhaps maybe just an ambulance has to attend to.
Sure. Sure.
Being able to drill down is going to be our mission moving forward to figure out why that is, right? And a lot of these are somewhat random too, in that the days of the week or the time of day is not consistent. It's very random. So
So as soon as this system is fixed, we'll be able to see all of that.
you will get that report as well on
Very
a
good.
monthly basis.
Thank you.
Yes. And then also attached, you see item 2417 for our EMS incidents in the month of January, totaling 296 times. There are no questions on those. I'll call your attention to item 24018, the monthly activity for the Fire Prevention Bureau, and I'll let Deputy Howe speak to that. He's got to go to the microphone, so bear with us.
So reporting out for the month of January. The numbers here in the graph are fairly self-explanatory. There were 38 fire department permits issued. Those would be sprinkler permits, fire alarm permits, permit to operate a plate assembly, those type of things. 63 inspections, 21 prevention-related meetings, which typically we're meeting with a developer or a contractors for some of the major projects going on within the city. And then 18 approvals that are not associated with the fire department permits. And most of these are approval steps on a building permit with a few encumbrance permits sprinkled in there as well. Some of the items of note this month, Fire Prevention Officer Wheeler facilitated 2 fire station tours with the Boy Scouts. These were related to badges, a safety badge and a helping badge. Fire Prevention Officers Wheeler and Putney also performed an inspection along with the Pease Development Authority for the fuel farm at Port City Air. Fire Prevention Officer Putney taught a class on NFPA 825, which is a standard for the inspection, testing, and maintenance of water-based fire protection systems. to the New Hampshire Fire Prevention Society. He also attended a meeting with the Northeast Sprinkler Coalition. We dealt with a political rally at the Sheridan. Although the Sheridan already has a permit of assembly, whenever there's a political rally, we have to go and recalculate occupant load because there's press risers set up, there's stages for the candidate. Secret Service is often involved, which takes away exits, which necessitates us to recalculate the occupant load and make sure that they're operating in a safe manner. And then we also met a couple of times with city staff, including representation from the city's economic development mission regarding the outdoor dining ordinance, which passed its second reading and its public hearing at the last city council meeting, and we're coming up for its third and final reading at the next city council meeting. Any questions?
Just a budgeting question, probably for the chief, is when we do and are given extra work to do, more cost to the fire department for these political events, is that billed to someone or is that built into our budget?
So depending on when the activity takes place, there may be a bill.
Okay,
In this particular case, most of the time that was allotted was during staff hours, so there was not.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Call your attention to item 24019, the budget report. As you can see, the projected balance at the moment is a positive balance of mere $515.67. You'll note most of the problem with the budget is at the top there in red with respect to the salary and overtime line items that we discussed during the budget hearing. A lot of the other spending has been reined back in, and I'll let the assistant chief talk about that under his report a little bit. But we are taking corrective measures to make sure that that number doesn't get any lower. So we're looking to come in at as close to zero as we can here, but clearly we got some challenges. Item 24020 shows you the overtime analysis report for the month of January. I'll entertain any questions that the commission may have with respect to the FY24 budget and the overtime analysis report, if there are any.
No question.
No questions.
Thank you. So concludes my report for the evening.
Look, we need a motion to approve all.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the fire chief's reports 24016 through 24020.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed. Staff reports.
So as the chief had just mentioned, one of the things that put into effect is a freeze on any purchasing from the line offices at this time. So what we'll have to do is any approvals for if they need to purchase from house cleaning supplies, things of that nature. They're gonna have to go through either the chief or I for that approval to make sure that we have the funding available for it. As well as tools, equipment, anything like that. We're putting a hold on right now to ensure that we can make it through the budget process as successfully as possible. Facilities right now, we're in pretty good shape. They completed up their repairs at Station 1 last week. There's some heat. It's a little better in the building. Our apparatus and equipment, ambulance 1 was returned to service the middle of last month after the commission meeting I spoke about, after having some extensive work done to the rear end of that vehicle. Is operating as needed. The remaining apparatus is in good shape. Marine 1 will be going down to down south for about a week or so to have some repairs done, as well as some routine maintenance that we had budgeted for. Personnel, like to congratulate Brian Foster on successfully completing paramedic school. Passed his national registry on his first shot and now functioning as one of our paramedics. Currently brings our total number of paramedics in the department to 32, with 3 firefighters currently enrolled in paramedic school. We'll be finishing up late next fall. Currently have 1 candidate in background process, leaving 2 vacancies to fill. I'm conducting 2 additional interviews next week. Hopefully looking to get those final 2 positions filled in the near future. And I'll also begin participating with dispatcher interviews this Thursday and Friday at the PD. And as they look to continue to fill their vacancies as well. Training and operations, probationary training is ongoing for all of our new personnel. A lot of focus lately on our personnel completing their continuing education for their EMS recertification. We've also had a local educator in doing shift training for all the shifts to augment the online component that we've been doing. And that is my report.
Thank you. No questions.
I had one, no, I forgot what it was. How about that?
I'll be here till the end.
The 1 firefighter and the 2 vacancies, excuse me, for the projections what's the start date for those projections from the budget standpoint?
So we are at the moment leaving those positions open as we project. When they
Right.
become filled, then we change our projections. So in other words, if a shift is running at 13 or 14 people, right? If that's where we project out, so it's real time as to what you're looking at, because then whatever savings we can get from the budget for not hiring that person are then, we move that money essentially over to the overtime or coverage line items that we need. So it may show that we're understated in a salary line item, but the reality is that money has been, internally transferred to the overtime line item so that the bottom line isn't exceeded. So if we're at 13, if I have 13
Yeah.
people hired,
Good job.
no, I'm happy to
Good
try and
question.
redo it. If we have 13 people,
Yep.
and we hire a 14th, then we change our projections moving forward. Right? Because right now we have, on paper, right, we have some shifts at 15, others are at 13 that are assigned, right? And the minimum number that we can have on shift is 13.
So is this salary line and this overtime line that Tracy has projected out inclusive of those hires or not including those hires?
Not including those hires till they're actually here.
So is that make this number at risk even more once they come on board?
Not necessarily, right? In that those people will be here and they'll be taking a vacancy that might otherwise be paid with overtime.
Thank you.
I'm good.
Thank you, appreciate it. Pat, did you have more for us? Okay, I didn't know when you covered, did you have more here? Okay.
I have a question though for Jason, how, the analytics that you have that you submit each month, right? It looks like on average 2 to 3 records per day. Right? Is that indicative of bandwidth or work? Meaning, do you have a backlog of things that you can't get to, or is that just how much your team can handle? You have to go to the microphone. Good call, chief.
Trying.
We currently do not have much of a backlog.
Okay.
We're clearing permits out within a week,
Perfect.
2 at the most. It's a big project.
Okay, thank you.
Any old business?
No old business, Mr. Chairman.
New business. Resignation of firefighter Fidel. Is his letter in here?
His letter is in.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Fire chief?
The last one.
Fine, listen.
Got it, thank you.
Do we need a motion to accept and put on file?
Thank you. Yes.
I make a motion to accept and put on file.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Under new business, would you like us to,
Now would be the appropriate time for you to take action as to what you'd like me to move forward to the city manager in the budget process.
Like to make a motion to accept the presentation that was made this evening in whole and move that forward to the city manager and therefore the council. That accurate?
yeah, good motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any questions? Any discussion?
The only one that really stood out was that staffing that third ambulance at nearly half of our proposed new budget. So, obviously we'll put it through to the council, but that might need to be looked at.
They asked for a budget. And we came back with what this fire department needs. And we always said we'd run with 3 and we're gonna give it a shot. They are
They
expecting,
also asked for a budget within like 4% or 3%,
Oh, I know.
not 11, so
I think they're expecting
Saying-
to see some
like the obligations are certainly
huge.
contractual with collective bargaining and salaries and all of those things. Retirement, overtime, right? Those are required, workman's comp.
We can get to that million, 2 million, 3 rather quickly.
So our intent though is to operate with 3 ambulances. We have been doing with 2, right?
I understand.
To keep the budget down. My belief is the city warrants the 3rd ambulance. As the chief had said, if over 25% of our calls are simultaneous, I'm assuming some of those are medical. That we probably need it, and the mutual aid ambulances, they are out there, but as dependable, they're as busy as we are to do that. So I think the city, for its size, seasons coming in and our exposures can well justify 3. But I understand your point that a good piece of the increase in the budget is to get that 3rd ambulance back. Keep in mind, we had 3 ambulances and they're not parked. If you notice, the ambulance bays are always empty, right? They're always on the road. So that's my thought. Vote.
That's good thought. Good thought.
So I think, right, I agree with your thoughts here and your sentiments. I think what, again, the city council transferred in some money to our budget to fund these contracts. But city policy has always been not to fund overtime and let it be a directive of management. We took a step backwards with respect to service. And I think that this budget proposal will let the council make that policy decision, whether this is a spending issue or not, that they're looking to address.
I'd almost want to have seen it as once the collective bargaining was approved last year and it was funded at the time, what our end budget would have been. And then therefore going forward, what are we asking for? Because I know it's not 11%, right? And that would include not having to unstaff the 3rd ambulance and then try to restaff it and make it look so.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think
I'm
that-
happy to give you a projection if you'd like.
Well, I just think there's a lens that the public might not understand if they see 11.7%. And
This is kind of like the perfect storm, though.
I don't disagree. I'm saying like, let's educate
Yeah, okay,
and
fine, yeah.
understand how we got here. It's not because we're overspending by 11%.
No, that's a good point.
And that's why you see the numbers beside all of the items, so that when somebody sees this, they'll go, oh, they don't have to go back and look for them.
Mhm.
They're there. We usually don't put the numbers in that last sheet that you saw. Usually don't put the numbers there. So that was there to explain.
And that was helpful.
And you know what? Let them call and ask us.
On each of those shifts, chief, the people, men and women that are manning the ambulance,
Mhm.
they are also firefighters.
Correct.
fully trained as all the firefighters are, so you can deploy them as firefighters if you needed to. So we don't have people that are sitting, waiting to get an ambulance call and there's a fire. They also attend fires.
That's correct. For the excellent question, Commissioner. Thank you. Right, for the public's edification, our folks are cross-trained and can do either job, whether it's firefighter or ambulance work. And which is oftentimes why our fire trucks will arrive prior to an ambulance at a medical call, because they are closer and they have the same personnel that can deliver the same level of care that they would if the ambulance were to arrive first. But in an effort to try and make sure that we get the right people in the quickest possible time on scene, we'll send the closest unit, regardless of whether it's a fire truck or an ambulance.
Thank you.
As stated, we're just trying to get back to our 2023 levels
Yes,
that we were, and
we're
that's,
not adding anything.
we're not adding
No.
anything. As a matter of fact, I hope nothing breaks.
But as the other commissioner stated, though, we need to put it in context so the public understands.
I agree.
We're not asking for more money, but it's kind of a poke in the eye when they do see 11%.
You
This
mean not,
is why it is.
Yeah.
This is why it is 11%, and we would welcome calls asking for that information so we can do that. We're not trying to get ahead. We're not trying to do anything more than we were giving for service that we gave in 23. We had to clip an ambulance, stop an ambulance because we had to meet the budget.
and you'll see those lines kind of interact with each other as you hire to. And there'll be less overtime, so that this $20 over here now has come off this $20. So
Mhm.
they even themselves out, and they will be, same $20 will be in a different spot.
Mhm.
And we hope to get there. So. Any other questions? The motion was to ask the chief to send it forward to the city council, let it be the city manager's budget at this point. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Done. Thank you. Good
Thank you.
job. Good job on this. I
Thank you.
know it's been hard for you guys.
Well, you'll notice
Punching numbers as late as this morning.
the number that was in your packet was much different than the number you saw tonight, because we got some more information and some updated numbers from finance on Monday.
Mhm.
So thank you to Tracy for all your efforts and your assistance in helping me get this done.
Thank you, Tracy.
We can read it. Thank you
Always thank you.
very much.
Any other business this evening? Need a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you, folks.